We are all connected?
Yep, we're good.
All righty. Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. It's just a little bit, it is 6:38 p.m., and you're at a Common Council meeting of the City of Wausau. Welcome. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Next up is roll call, and Clerk Caitlin is all over it. I don't know what mine is. Something's wrong with mine. I signed in under both discussion and.
We have 11 voting members present.
Great, thank you. All right, I don't have proclamations for you today, but we do have public comment. So, we only have one person who's signed up, Marianne Grote. I think maybe she'll just address us from here.
Yeah. So last week was Municipal Clerk Week for the state of Wisconsin. Okay, I'm going to start to cry.
We've already pre-cried on this one.
I got to start your timer.
So if I start crackling on my voice,
You only
I'm
got
sorry.
3 minutes. So.
And I really wanted to take a few minutes to recognize Caitlin and the customer service staff because, you know, we basically, the department is a first stop to a lot of our residents when they're looking for information. And I watch the staff try to coordinate information so that they're giving good, accurate information to residents when they call. Obviously, sometimes it's more difficult than others, depending on how fast information is emerging. But they really do an excellent job every day, and every day they're trying to do a better job of it. And so I'm just so impressed, and I am so impressed with Caitlin. So she is, you know, coming up on 1.5 years of service with the city, and in 1.5 years, she has built such a strong knowledge base in, you know, the elections, in government, in licensing, and, you know, I can tell you I've had to hire 3 clerks, and there is nothing that makes me shake in my boots more than when a clerk gives me their resignation, because it is such a specialized job, and because it is so public facing, there's a lot of risk there. And I can tell you that Caitlin has outperformed in every aspect of her job. We are so fortunate to have someone with the energy and the communication skills and the leadership skills that Caitlin has. Even in technology, she has WISVOTE, just like down pat, has done several other technology projects to make us more efficient. We now have an election poll worker management software that we're using to help schedule our poll workers, which is a big project when you have 100 poll workers coming in to work a day, to educate them, to schedule them. Many of them are elderly, so, you know, they have last minute illnesses and, you know, things that come up. She also has done a great job in remaining neutral and unbiased, and so she has really earned the respect of a lot of individuals and stakeholders in elections, and we all know that that is not possible everywhere. So, you know, whether it be the poll workers, whether it be political affiliates, they have all worked together with Caitlin, and I think she's respected by all. And she also has opened up elections and voting to more individuals by holding Saturday early voting days. So I just really feel like we have the best clerk in the state and want to recognize her work because she is awesome with a capital A. So I'm
Oh, God. No, that's not needed. Not needed. Thank you.
For the
Thank
record,
you.
she hates this.
Thank you.
I don't usually respond to public comment, but I'm just going to say ditto. You're incredible.
Ditto,
Thank you. So she's going to stop blushing by the end of this meeting. Okay, no more public comment?
No.
Mercifully, no more. All right, next up on our agenda is our consent agenda. It is item number 230401 through item number 940828. It looks like I have a motion from Alder Watson and a second from Alder Henke. Any discussion here? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is item number 230503, Mayor's Appointments. We do have one, Randy Bukowski, for Board of Review, and he'll be very excited to learn that his first meeting is tomorrow. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Martins. Any discussion? Okay.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is item number 230507. This is a joint resolution from SISM and Finance approving the closure of the McClellan parking ramp. I have a motion by Alder Rasmussen and a second by Alder Herbst. Is there any discussion? I don't see any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. Item number 230508, it's a resolution from the Economic Development Committee approving the sale of 1316 and 1407 North 2nd Street. Looks like I have a motion from Alder Hinkie and a second by Alder Watson. Is there any discussion? Nope.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
Oop, sorry. Thank you. We're now on to item number 221109. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving carryover funding of $40,000 for the 2022 Scott Street Bridge fencing project to 2023. It looks like we have a motion by Alder Rasmussen and a second by Alder Herbst. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When this first came about, when it was 6 or 8 months ago, whatever, I didn't support it. But after what I've witnessed when I went on the tour and the safety concerns of the citizens of the whole of Wausau, and the fact that, you know, people got upset because a person died underneath the Scott Street Bridge, well, maybe we ought to fence it off so they can't get down there anyway. You know, the people don't, there's no dignity in living underneath a bridge. So I'm going to be supporting this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. This is well-timed. Our housing task force that's run by United Way met today. The mayor and I both attended that, and what we heard back from the agencies that perform the work, from the outreach coordinator, from the police department, from Catholic Charities, the efforts that we've set in force to address homelessness are working. Use of the shelters is up. It's stayed up since the flood evacuation and the subsequent enforcement of the camping ordinances. People are getting into those programs and those shelters and getting the help that they need, and usage at Open Door is up. Catholic Charities is working with them in an advisory role to work on that, but what we wanted to see happen, where people are getting on that better path and getting to those facilities to get the help they need, that's happening. And, you know, Alder Larson is 100% right when he says that infrastructure dwelling is not a dignified solution for anyone. I think that this particular project needs to happen. And since the change has taken place where we don't see that urban camping happening anymore, I've received an influx of positive feedback from people who have basically returned to use of the River Edge Trail and the riverfront that previously had been deterred based on that situation. So I think we're seeing a two-faceted success here. I really think I suggested that we take a tour under there so people could see the situation as it exists. It had been dramatically cleaned up by the time we got there, but we were given 18 photos, so we know what it looked like before. We know what that slippery slope to get at people to help them that icy day looked like. So even though the tour was a while ago, let us not forget what we saw while we were under there. Those situations are not existing at the moment, and people are better for it. Everything I heard today at the coalition this morning supports the fact that everything that we have turned the keys on here to get people the help they need, it's happening and it's having success. So thank you.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree that some of the funds that we have applied toward homelessness have helped tremendously in a mainstream situation. So I think it was quite evident from the Committee of the Whole, and I don't think it's in dispute at all, that what we do not have is an ability, and that goes with the county and North Central Healthcare as well, since we talked about how treatment programs had been closed during COVID and construction. We still have a massive unaddressed void with those who are unhoused, who have mental health issues, certain health issues, and certain substance and alcohol issues. So I believe the increased application of funding to address homelessness has definitely moved the needle. But I think it would not just take a coalition, it would take a magician if, since the Committee of the Whole, suddenly the ability to address unhoused individuals with mental health, alcohol, or substance use issues has changed since then. It has not, to my knowledge. So I think that's something as a city that we still need to keep our eyes on and work on, hopefully along with the county and North Central Healthcare. And I do agree that that's not a quote unquote, it was described dignified dwelling, but I don't think it was an elective for some of the reasons that I just stated. And I think we need to be candid that it wasn't because there wasn't a suite at the Jefferson Street Inn open that people would live in such conditions. It is that there are still unaddressed needs, and we should be, as government, addressing them because that is our responsibility. I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Lukens.
Thank you. I like Alder Larson. I agree with Alder Larson. I had originally voted against this as well after going on the tour. And I agree with Alder Killian's note about, needing more mental health care and other things like that. I know this all is an issue throughout the whole country and in other places too. I've been trying to learn as much as I can about this situation for a long time, and I'm not on the task force, but I've been trying to learn about what other places are doing, what other cities, what other states are doing, and just know that it's so complex. What I've come to, especially after the tour, is just the many complexities of that too, the different safety issues, the issues of public service needing to get in there in the case of flooding, which is going to be an increasing risk, I think, as our climate continues to change. And I personally have heard from people that I know who used to walk the trail, so that's not right under the bridge, but have been afraid to with their children for safety reasons in the last while. So it's complex, but I will be voting for this because I do think those areas do need to be kept. People need to be kept out of those areas. So thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I guess just one closing comment as well. Today at the task force, one of the things that we heard from our outreach coordinator, Tracy Rieger, was that, when we had to do the emergency flood evacuation, the folks that traditionally did not fit in a shelter model, everyone that needed shelter found a place to go and found a place to be. That said, our shelters have told us today that they are able to and willing to scale up capacity. A couple have scaled up capacity permanently and can scale it further when there's an emergency like heat or cold. I think that we can do better than leaving people underneath a bridge, and we've shown that. And so I think that, obviously this needs to happen, but she also has received an increase in interactions with people who want her help, who are willing to take that next step to get to that better place. And it becomes a matter of choose your heart. Like, it's difficult to live like they were living. It's also difficult to do the work to get on that better path, and that often is a harder and more painful path. And so if people are, as a result of this effort that we've undertaken here, and this one subsequently, maybe willing to be just a little less comfortable in their current situation and circumstances, that they're willing to do that next hard step. That's our goal, to get people on that better path and get them out of a cycle of perpetual homelessness and misery. So I think that this also is a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you. I applaud the great efforts that's been made by our community for dealing with dealing with the homelessness. I didn't think that this was going to be a debate on the issue of homelessness here, but I think that what is being said about the care that Tracy Rieger presents to the people on the street is great, and I think she may need some help. I think she can't do it alone, and I would think that the city may be thinking about, or somebody may be thinking, some agency may be thinking about having people on the street doing what Casey Rieger's doing. I will vote against this. I don't think this is the way the city of Wausau should be treating its people. Very unfortunate for whatever reason, fencing them off, creating spaces that are not going to be pretty, that are really, I don't think, in the right effort for the city of Wausau. I think that we can do better. I think if we put our minds to it, I think we can find ways, instead of putting up fences, let's get people on the street helping the people that need help so that they can find their right direction. I don't think this is the way to go, and I will vote against this.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to respond to some comments by my colleague about kind of everything working out just great after the enforcement of the no camping. I believe it was within a week I received a call from a nonprofit about an individual who, due to a mental health issue, could not go to a shelter and had been sleeping outside and was having great difficulty finding some place to go due to, I was told, a health condition. So the reality is that, what we've been doing has been moving the needle in general as a city, along with the county and North Central Healthcare. Unless we get a better hold on the intersection with mental health, alcohol, and substance use, we will not have comprehensively, responsibly dealt with this issue. And yes, sometimes people need encouragement. I would say more so support in making certain decisions at times that may be difficult, but it is not our role as the government to create more pain or sorrow in the context of what seems like a self-deportation policy, except with homelessness. So no, we're not there to do such things. We're there to help in a responsible way, and we can't fully do that until we address the intersection of mental health, alcohol, and substance use issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the saying goes, things don't change if things don't change. You know, we have got $1 million invested into this, and you know, I had to make some uncomfortable decisions in the city here, and as far as the camping underneath the, you know, the Scott Street bridges and such, you know, that, you know, the point I want to get at is our businesses downtown, have been victimized by this situation for so long, and if I personally know of two businesses that have moved out of downtown because of the homeless situation, and we can't continue this trend. Are we going the right path? I don't know, but this homeless thing didn't start itself overnight, nor is it going to cure itself overnight. I think, as has been mentioned, we've moved the needle quite a ways, and I hope that we continue to move the needle. And with that, I'm still going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Lukens.
Thank you. I just realized I had my mic on the whole time. I'm sorry. Anyway, I once again agree with Alder Larson that I guess I think of it that we do have to we have to consider everyone. So, I do know that people that work with unhoused populations, that's a hard job, and I thank them too. I thank all of our community partners that are doing that work because there are a lot of mental health issues and addiction issues that go with that. Therefore, there are safety issues too that are posed to others, and I guess that's where I'm thinking of the business owners. And some people I've heard from our families with children who very, very much care about the unhoused populations, because some work with populations like that, but they have felt unsafe at times. So I guess, again, I'll still be voting for it, but just that my view is that to try to balance it all, and it's very complex. So thank you.
Thank you. I do not see any other requests to, Alder Denny.
Thank you, Mayor. I did vote against this originally because of, I think many of us did, because we were facing winter and we still saw people under there. So there was an apparent need at that point. And, I guess I'm not 100% convinced we know exactly where everybody landed. And come this winter, I would be disappointed to see that we don't have any options for those people, or we haven't. So, looking at the mechanics, I hate to parse this too deeply, but it seemed pretty obvious on the Mandarin side or the west side of the bridge. It's extremely dangerous for anyone, kids, nosy people, homeless, who happen to get underneath the bridge, could be swept into the water. I think that's a no-brainer. We should be sealing off the equipment there at WPS. I'm more reluctant, though, to the farthest east piece of that. I don't know that there's really a need to do. We're not protecting any equipment, and we're not really protecting safety of anybody entering that area. But I'd like to see that we have move the needle more before we completely fence that off. So I'll be not supporting this.
Alder Herbst.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to go back and remind the council what Deputy Chief, Matt Barnes told us. Not all the people that we talk about are from Wausau. They come from the north, the west, and the east. And they get dropped off here at 2 o'clock in the morning because other people don't want them in their counties. You have to remember that these people, believe it or not, do have money. And they do shoplift. I was picking up branches and things at the park, finding little liquor bottles, ones that are just appropriate to shoplift when they're in a business. And I'll tell you, we certainly would be able to take care of these people and get them the help that they need. But I just want you to remember that these are not all Wausau people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not seeing any further requests to speak. I think we're ready to vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 8-3.
All right. Thank you. We are now moving on to item number 221109A. This is a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the 2023 budget modifications for the police facilities. We have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Rasmussen. Is there any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. We are now on to file number 230506. This is a joint resolution from the Human Resources and Finance Committees creating and classifying a fleet analyst position in DPW. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Lukens. Is there any discussion? I'm not seeing anybody.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is item number 210507. This is a resolution from the Parks and Recreation Committee approving a contract with the Mainline Trail Construction LLC for 2023 maintenance improvements to Sylvan Hill Bike Park. I have a motion by Alder Lukens and a second by Alder Herbst. Are there any questions or discussion? I'm not seeing any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, next up, we are requesting to suspend the Rule 6B filing. This does require a 2/3 vote. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Lukens. You don't get to discuss this.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. Rule suspended. So now we're on to file number 230510. This is a resolution from the Finance Committee providing for the sale of a $17.5 million note, anticipation note series 2023A. This did pass in Finance 5-0. I have a motion by Alder Rasmussen and a second by Alder Watson. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. This did pass in finance. Mary Ann summarized the finer points of the resolution, but since that meeting, we did have our representative from Ellers who's arrived, if anyone has questions for him on this. But this and note anticipation note really does gap finance the granular activated carbon solution to help us remain PFAS-free in our local water system prior to the receipt of grants and forgivable loans that we've applied for. So that's where we're at, but I just wanted to point out if anyone has questions that he's here.
Okay. I'm going to call on Alder Denny, and then I know that we have a presentation, so maybe we could go through that for the public anyway. So Alder Denny.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I asked this question in finance, and I guess I just want to kind of circle back to it so I understand. So it's listed as a special obligation, not general obligation, but when we get to that point down next June, will it become eventually a general obligation and put us into further GO debt?
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Raymer with Ellers. I can address your question now. It will not. The plan is to finance the long-term solution for this project with the Safe Drinking Water Fund Loan Program, like the previous water treatment facility upgrade in 2020. And so that would be done on a water revenue obligation basis and not a GO basis. So hopefully that answers your question.
Sure. Okay. Looks like we have your presentation if you want to just
Surely.
take us
Yep.
through it briefly.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the first slide here just kind of addresses the need for the gap financing, basically saying that the state revolving fund loan program in which you're applying for that allows for the grants, it only covers a portion of your total financing needs, so there will be a loan portion, but this is subject to timing. And based on what the engineers have prepared in terms of a spend down schedule, there would be a gap in time in which the city would need funding before those loans would close. So this is prepared by your engineers as well as the utility staff members. So just note this kind of addresses the need for the $17 million. In terms of looking at the financing options, specifically, we looked at some alternatives, which I'll get to on the next slide, but ultimately we want to pledged this on a special obligation, meaning we don't want this to be a revenue security because you'd have to prove that you have rates in place to pay for $17 million 1 year from now. So that's out of the question. And as well as on a GO basis, you would have to prove and maintain that capacity for that debt, meaning that under statute, you have only 5% of your total equalized value, and that would count against you while this loan was outstanding. As an anticipation note, it does not. You just have to prove that you have the capacity at the time that you're issuing the note. So with that, the anticipation note or special obligation is recommended. The maturity of 1 year basically says giving you that time until the long-term financing would close, being available from the state, as well as those grants. And then interest due at maturity as a result of the program only allowing for those costs to be reimbursed at your choosing if they are done at the time that that loan closes. So if you were to have interim interest payments, you wouldn't be able to recoup those costs should you choose. So that provides you the financial flexibility to do so. That said as well, doing this as kind of a private placement and not a public issuance allows you to save some costs of issuance and not preparing an official statement, and as well as not having kind of the diligence requirements requested of that, and as well as the reporting requirements that would be required. So we've had success selling similar transactions like this. So in speaking with city staff, we address these alternatives as well as looking at these terms, and also had bond counsel review it on behalf of the city. It's kind of your way of saying this is what we're looking for. And then based on the list of banks that city staff has kind of chosen, along with the help from Ellers identifying those similar transactions, basically saying this is what we're looking for. You'll bid on this, kind of no different than a public project. And then ultimately, if you have any sort of questions on timing or the terms, we can address those at this time as well. But that said, the terms are kind of outlined here on a bulleted list for council. On the next slide, just kind of identifies some of the alternatives you would have as a state trust fund loan. While that's available and kind of another way to lower your cost of issuance, those are not done on an anticipatory nature. Those would be done on a GO nature. So unfortunately, you'd be going against that initial recommendation. You'd have to eat into your GO debt capacity for the time that the note would be outstanding. And then I've kind of walked through the other methods in terms of selling this publicly and lowering the cost of issuance. And then we did review this at a previous meeting of Joint Waterworks and Finance Committee as well. And then ultimately, those are kind of sources and uses, just so you get an identification of the total, project costs, kind of looking at 17.5 million, but then we've also included your estimated interest earnings as well, and then the cost of that transaction from our fees as well as bond counsel as well. So those are kind of the limited fees where if you were to sell this on the open market, you could anticipate double or triple that in order to kind of get those that transaction done. And then the next item just identifies kind of an estimated interest rate. We've had some recent sales of a similar nature go for about 4.85%. So given the month gap or so that we're looking at, we could anticipate just the general trend of about 5 basis points a week to kind of this 5.15. That said, we'll kind of see on sale day, June 13th, would be the point in which you would see the actual interest rate provided by the lowest costs to the city. Then lastly, just kind of the timeline there is, presuming that this moves forward at tonight's meeting, we would anticipate sending out that term sheet tomorrow and request bid responses in about a month, and then award that interim financing on June 13th. If you're curious as to the difference between the GO bonds or revenue bonds that we've sold in the past being on the day of the meeting, the reason that we don't do this in this kind of limited competitive nature is if there's any sort of differences in the bids, in terms of not always being one-to-one, in terms of their costs or their requests, as a result of the terms. We'd like to kind of have that time to navigate that and provide kind of the appropriate award terms. So that gives us a few days to kind of navigate that. And then this would be back at your June 13th meeting. And then you'd close on the funds June 29th, which based on, city staff's indication would provide ample time for this project to get underway and provide money available in order to finance those project costs and pay applications that would come in. And also, you would be dispersing this all at once, as was mentioned in the Finance Committee meeting, but you could invest it for the time period until your spend-out period ends. So given that it's only a year, you kind of have a little bit of open season to invest those funds. So we'd be working with the city to do that.
Do you have anything that you would like to add?
Nope.
Are there any questions or comments? Alder Watson.
After the recent FOMC's, target change for the federal funds rate, do you anticipate anything else happening in between now and then? Or are there any anticipated rate changes in the rest of the year?
Are you speaking
That-
to
that-
beyond June
Yeah.
13th?
Yeah, because if we would delay or not take all of the funds at once, would that change the interest we would pay on it, or it would stay the same?
I would say generally, we typically see a spike over the summer period in terms of interest rates as a result of more and more supply going into the market for municipal securities. That said, this being kind of a one-year note, I wouldn't anticipate much of a change. There's kind of an attractiveness to the short term, and likely as well too, there's no this is going to be privately held, so it's not like they're selling it to investors, so you're less subject to that market change. And it's more or less in terms of what they're doing with it internally for the underwriter that's kind of ultimately bidding on this. So it's more driven by their internal controls on what they're going to do rather than market conditions, understanding that there's a general game theory here and competitive nature of bidding this to multiple entities. So.
Okay. Alder Denny.
Thank you, Mayor. You had mentioned the one year we would have to go to general obligation, and are we required to do that calculation now under equalized value percentage or not?
You just have to prove that you have the capacity. It does not eat into your capacity, but you do have the capacity to issue it on a note anticipation note.
Okay, and you're comfortable, we've looked at that and
Correct.
we have capacity? Okay.
But ultimately, it will be a revenue bond. So
At the end, yep,
yeah.
yep.
So ultimately, it will never apply
Yep.
against our GO.
Sure.
Any further questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much. I think we are ready for the vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. All right. Next up is item number. I do want to recognize that if there's any moment you'd like to go into closed session, you're welcome to mention that. But we're now on to item number 230509. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee approving the city's accepted offer to purchase 103105 111 Winton Street and a portion of 402 through 406 Winton Street lying west of the railroad tracks and related budget modification. This did pass Finance 4-1. I would entertain a motion, or if you have a motion to go into closed session, there's also language there. Looks like Alder Watson, I'm going to request that you maybe read that for us.
So I move to go to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, relating to approval of accepted offer to purchase properties located at 103, 105, 111 Winton Street and that portion of 402 through 406 Winton Street lying west of the railroad tracks.
All right, I have a second by Alder Herbst. I'm just going to ask a clarifying question to the attorney. We have another item for closed session. Is it something we should be reading right now?
Yes.
Okay, so if there is another person who maybe would like to read that one.
I could read it.
All right,
It was
Alder
so
Watson,
fun.
thank you.
Okay. I would also move to go to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, 19.85, sub 1, sub G of the Wisconsin statutes for conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or likely to become involved, relating to implementation of council resolution file number 04-1115, adopted August 10th, 2010, and modification of agreement between the City of Wausau, Wausau Waterworks, and Green Acres of Greenwood Hills LLC, subdivision owner, and an agreement between the City of Wausau and Green Acres at Greenwood Hills LLC.
I would take a second. All right, Alder Herbst again. Thank you. Oh, well, we got a couple. We got Alder Larson, actually, so thank you for everyone. We got a vote. Is it appropriate to do public comment now or when we come back?
Agendized before closed session.
Okay. Okay, we're going to take our roll call votes, and then I will ask if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak.
Are we voting on both of them separately?
Yeah, we got to vote on them separately. So the first one you're voting on is Winton.
Okay. Yes. Okay, you may begin voting.
No, I will roll call.
Point of order.
Okay.
Isn't, all right,
Sorry?
oh,
Okay.
so then you have to push the button? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Lukens.
Aye.
Hold on a second. I'm just going to do this and then turn it after. Okay. Lukens.
Aye.
Martins.
Aye.
Killian.
Aye.
Denny.
Aye.
Kisselman.
Aye.
McElhaney. Rasmussen.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Herbst.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Hanky.
Aye.
Motion passes 11-0.
Okay, and now one more time for our Greenwood Hills.
Okay. Lukens.
Aye.
Martins.
Aye.
Killian.
Aye.
Denny.
Aye.
Gisselman.
Aye.
McElhaney. Rasmussen.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Herbst.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Hanky.
Aye.
Motion passes 11-0.
Okay, I just want to make sure, is there anybody in the audience who I'm not seeing that would like to make a public comment or suggestion? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody, so we are going to go into closed session and we'll be back.